Halloween. Halloween, of course, was the one day of the year where, like Sunday was the one day of the week where I could participate in music. I wasn't sitting behind the drum set making a lot of racket or playing with a rock and roll band that was trying to be the Beatles, which I understandably so drove my parents crazy. On Sunday, I went to church and I sang with the choir. That was okay. That was good. And actually, I was getting a little money, not much, $4, a month or something to sing in the choir, whatever it was, $13, I don't know. But Halloween was, as you know, the one day of the year where it is accepted for you to pretend to be something that you're not. So it was a big ritual waiting to have that happen. The one thing that is sort of not a part of the American culture anymore, or certainly not as much as it was when I was around, was the act of carving a pumpkin. And that was sort of became a family ritual. Now, as you know, most people who are going to put a pumpkin on their porch get these plug-in ones. They all look the same. We didn't have plug-in pumpkins back then. You had to carve them. And that was, for me, a wonderful ritual. And I think it was probably the most exciting or charged about it was, putting the candle and lighting the candle and then staring at it. And I could do that for long periods of time. And to me, in many ways, the lit pumpkin was the conduit at nighttime between the visible and that invisible world. The stuff when I would look out into the sky at night and try to imagine what was going on way out there, That was the thing I was trying to connect with. And that I always, when I first started writing music, even before I got into the electronic ends of things, I was still in the acoustic world. I was always trying in my own simple, unsophisticated way when I started to attach myself or try to capture that which could not be seen in music somehow. Does it make sense?
It does.
Okay. So Halloween was the day in which I could be myself more than any other day of the year in many regards, going to a concert, a rock and roll concert, because that's all I knew about was rock and roll and Frank Sinatra. We had a record player. My parents had a Victrola, a record player, a high fidelity machine, or whatever they called it back in those days. And their record player, their records consisted of, things like Frank Sinatra, the Jackie Gleason Orchestra, a Mantovani, all wonderful music for sure, but no film music for sure. Cast albums from Broadway plays, but, no serious orchestral music. So I didn't even really know what an orchestra was back then. I had no idea, I certainly at grammar school, they had sort of a semi-musical class, but wasn't really. And of course, we heard about Brahms, Bach, and Beethoven, the 3 Bs of classical music, and Mozart and all that. But I thought, well, that was then. They're gone. Now the Beatles, they're probably the outgrowth of all this. That classical music is dead, has no relevance anymore. Little did I know that it was alive, if not well, and then happening. And of course, that's the ensemble that I am happiest working with, is an orchestra. So getting back to Halloween, of course, a connection was made there at a very young age. That I was fascinated by things that were intangible and unexpressible, that were mysterious, was there for as long as I can remember. Where I came from, I can't say, because it certainly wasn't anywhere in my mother or my father or any relative, grandparents or whatnot. There's that, I'm going to sort of paraphrase, I don't know the exact words, but H.P. Lovecraft, the American author of horror fantasy stories, said that, the oldest emotion known to mankind is fear. And the greatest fear of them all is that of the unknown. Now, I'm paraphrasing it. Those aren't exact words, and I should know them by now. So I'm sorry, H.P. But the essence of it is that the oldest emotion, and it makes sense, is fear. We're born into a world. Can you imagine back in the time of cavemen where there was, pre-light, pre-fire? It was like you're just totally dependent on the night sky and the stars and the moon to, illuminate what's going on out there. Without that, an overcast night, forget it, terrifying. So there's fear. What is out there? What is beyond? What is beyond the horizon? Or even hiding behind the trees. I see these trees right here behind me, and I go, God, if I didn't know any better, I could be terrified of what lays behind these trees line I'm seeing right here. So that fear is the oldest emotion makes sense. The unknown, what can't be seen. Once you see it, you at least understand it. Maybe a terrifying monster, horrifying it into itself, but it's that unknown thing. That's why I love ghost stories. It's that unknown element. We don't see, we just sense. I have a gigantic collection of classic ghost stories. That's my favorite kind of fiction in the next room over there. Anyway, so there begat Halloween.